Welcome to True Echo, where real moments meet powerful storytelling. Today's story begins on a rain-soaked highway and ends with a question no one expected. Do you want to be my child's father? A single mom. A quiet mechanic. A moment that changes 3 lives forever. What starts as a simple act of kindness unravels into a journey of healing, redemption, and the fight to protect what matters most. The rain had turned from a steady drizzle into a relentless downpour by the time Emma Parker's old sedan sputtered to a steaming halt on the shoulder of Highway 27. The hood hissed as if mocking her bad luck. Her son Liam, only 6, stirred in the back seat, his soft voice barely louder than the storm. "Are we going to be okay, Mommy?" Emma forced a smile as she turned to reassure him. "Of course, baby. Just a little car trouble." But in her heart, panic scratched at her composure. No cell signal. No roadside assistance. No family to call. She stepped out of the car, the icy rain soaking her navy sheath dress within seconds. It clung to her like regret, every movement sticking, every breath visible in the cold air. She popped the hood, staring into the engine like it might explain itself. It didn't. That's when she heard it. A low rumble cutting through the sound of the rain. An old pickup slowed, tires crunching gravel as it pulled behind her. She instinctively tensed. Then she saw him. He stepped down from the truck slowly, cautiously. He was tall, built like someone who had done hard work all his life, with hands that looked like they knew every kind of wrench and every kind of pain. A hood shadowed most of his face, but when he came closer, Emma saw eyes that startled her. Not because of fear, but because of their calmness. Focused. Deep. Kind. "Need some help?" he asked, already approaching the hood. Emma nodded, suddenly unsure what to say. "It started smoking a mile back. I think something burst." Without another word, he grabbed a wrench from his truck, leaned over the engine, and began his work. Steam swirled between them. The silence was thick but not uncomfortable. Emma found herself watching his hands, rough, precise, steady. Not once did his eyes stray to her soaked form, not even a sideways glance. That, more than anything, threw her off. A few minutes passed. Emma fidgeted, trying to stay composed despite the chill gnawing at her skin. And then it happened. The words came out of her mouth before she could catch them. "Do you want to be my child's father?" The air froze. Marcus didn't flinch, but his hand slipped slightly on the bolt. He paused, then slowly looked up. His eyes met hers, steady and unreadable. I'm sorry," she stammered, backing up a step. I don't even know why I said that. It was a joke. A stupid joke." But Marcus said nothing. He just returned to the engine, tightening one last bolt with care. From the fogged-up back seat, Liam watched with wide-eyed awe. "Mom," he whispered, pressing his face to the glass, "is he a superhero?" Emma didn't answer at first. She swallowed and glanced at Marcus again. "No, honey," she said quietly. "He's just a kind man who stopped to help." But Liam shook his head, watching the man's steady movements. He showed up at the perfect time, like a hero. The rain was relentless, but in Emma's chest, something stirred. Something she hadn't felt in years. Safety. Presence. The warmth of knowing someone was there when no one else had been. Marcus shut the hood and wiped his hands on a rag. "Your radiator hose blew," he said simply. "I patched it. It'll hold, but let the car rest for 20 minutes before driving again. Or you'll blow it for good." Emma nodded. "Thank you, really. I don't know what we would have done." Marcus shrugged. "Just passing through." He turned to leave. Emma hesitated. "Wait, maybe I could buy you dinner. To thank you." He paused, then glanced at her with a faint flicker of something, uncertainty, maybe. "No need, Miss Parker," he said, eyes briefly noting the name tag on her purse. Didn't do it for payment. Just then, the car door creaked open and Liam stepped out, shoes splashing in a shallow puddle as he ran toward the stranger. "What's your name, sir?" he asked, small voice filled with hope. The man knelt to his level, eyes finally warming with a spark of emotion. "Marcus. Marcus Bennett." Liam's eyes lit up. "I'm Liam." "Mr. Marcus, are you a superhero?" Marcus let out a quiet chuckle. "No, kiddo. Just a mechanic. But being a good person, that's its own kind of superpower." Emma felt something twist inside her. Those words weren't just for Liam, they reached into something deep inside her too. Marcus stood up and turned toward his truck. "Can I see you again, Marcus?" she asked, the question escaping her lips like breath she couldn't hold in. He paused for a moment at the door, then turned and gave her a small, mysterious smile. No answer. Just that smile. Then he was gone. Emma and Liam stood alone in the rain, her heart pounding. She didn't know what had just happened, but she knew one thing. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. That night, the rain finally stopped, leaving behind a heavy silence over Cedar Grove. Emma sat curled on the edge of the couch, a blanket draped around her, her laptop open but untouched. Liam was asleep in the next room, soft breaths rising and falling in perfect rhythm. But Emma couldn't sleep. Couldn't even think straight. She kept replaying the moment over and over, the way Marcus looked at her after she'd blurted out that question. "Do you want to be my child's father?" The words were still too loud in her mind. She hadn't meant it. Not really. And yet, maybe she had. She had seen something in Marcus that scared her, in a good way. Not attraction, though that was there too, quietly humming beneath the surface. But something deeper. Something steadier. The way he spoke to Liam. The way he worked on the car like it wasn't a burden. The way he didn't flinch when she embarrassed herself completely. That kind of presence didn't come from just being a good person. It came from being someone who had survived pain and hadn't let it make him cruel. She stood up and walked to Liam's room. The little boy was sprawled beneath his superhero blanket, a picture he had drawn earlier clutched in one hand. Emma gently pulled it from his fingers and looked at it. It was Marcus. Not a cartoon version. Not exaggerated with a cape or mask. Just Marcus, with kind eyes and a wrench in his hand, standing beside a smiling Emma and Liam. In a child's world, that was a family. Her throat tightened. She quietly kissed Liam's forehead and turned off the nightlight. The house was small, old, and often cold, but in that moment, it felt like a cathedral of questions. Across town, in a one-story house at the edge of the woods, Marcus sat on his own porch, staring out into the night. His fingers were curled around a chipped coffee mug, the steam long since gone. Crickets chirped quietly, the only sound that filled the space he lived in alone. He hadn't been able to forget Emma's question. Not because it offended him, but because it broke through. It hit something he had buried years ago. A wound he thought had closed, the memory of his father walking out the door and never coming back. The slow, aching realization that promises meant nothing. That you had to be strong because no one else would be. He'd sworn never to get close to anyone. Never be the one who stayed just long enough to hurt someone when he left. That's why he kept to himself. That's why he didn't let people know who he really was. Fixing cars was safe. Machines didn't need love. They just needed someone to show up and do the work. But today was different. That little boy's eyes, Liam's eyes, had looked at him like he was enough. Like he didn't need to be perfect. Just present. That terrified Marcus more than anything else. He sighed and stood, setting the mug on the porch rail. He looked out toward the darkness beyond the trees. "Don't get pulled in, Bennett," he muttered to himself. "That's not your life." But deep down, something in him whispered, maybe it could be. The next day came gray and still. Emma dropped Liam off at school and drove around town aimlessly, finally parking outside a small auto garage with a faded sign, "Fixing Forward." She didn't know what she was doing there. Just that she needed to be. The bell over the garage door jingled as she stepped in. The smell of oil and engine grease hit her instantly. Marcus was at the far end of the bay, bent over a rusted-out station wagon. He turned at the sound, surprised. "Miss Parker?" His brow furrowed, unsure. "Everything okay?" Emma stepped forward, trying not to feel awkward. "I asked around, someone told me you work here." Marcus wiped his hands on a rag, walking slowly toward her. "Yeah. This is my place." She looked around. It wasn't fancy. No polished signs. No waiting area with free coffee. Just tools, sweat, and care. "It suits you," she said without thinking. He raised an eyebrow. "I mean, it's real. Honest. Like you." He looked at her for a long moment before speaking. "Why are you here, Emma?" She swallowed. "Because I couldn't stop thinking about yesterday. About what you did for us. And how Liam," her voice caught for a second, "how Liam talked about you all night like you were some kind of miracle." Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. "I'm not a miracle." "I know that," she said softly. "But sometimes, you don't need to be a miracle. Just someone who shows up." Silence stretched between them. Then Liam's little voice echoed from the doorway. "Hi, Mr. Marcus." He ran in, backpack bouncing, eyes wide with joy. Marcus crouched to greet him, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You skipping school to hang out with me, little man?" "Nope. Mom picked me up early. She said we could help you today." Marcus looked up at Emma, surprised. She gave a little shrug. "If you'll let us." He hesitated. Then nodded. "Okay. But be careful. This place isn't for amateurs." Liam whooped in excitement, darting toward a corner stacked with old tires. Emma smiled, brushing her hair back from her face. Marcus caught the gesture and, for a fleeting second, let his eyes rest on her, just a little longer than necessary. Then he turned back to his work. As Liam explored the garage and Emma quietly sorted tools beside Marcus, the air between them warmed. It wasn't romantic yet. It wasn't dramatic. But it was real. And for Marcus Bennett, who had spent most of his life alone, that was more terrifying, and more beautiful, than anything else in the world. The days that followed settled into an unexpected rhythm. On weekends, Emma and Liam showed up at Fixing Forward, not as guests, but as helpers. Liam wore oversized safety goggles and carried a plastic toolbox Marcus had let him borrow. Emma, who had never touched an engine in her life, learned how to hand Marcus the right wrench without being told twice. Marcus pretended it was just for fun. That it didn't mean anything. But it meant everything. He never said it out loud, but watching Emma laugh softly while wiping grease off her cheek, or hearing Liam ask 100 questions in a row while he pointed at brake pads and spark plugs, those moments stitched something new into Marcus's soul. Something that looked a lot like hope. One crisp morning, Marcus loaded the bed of his pickup with tools and supplies. He was heading out to fix an elderly woman's car in one of the rougher parts of town, a place most people didn't bother visiting. He didn't expect anyone to join him. But as he climbed into the cab, he saw Emma and Liam standing at the gate, bundled up and smiling. "It's going to be a long day," Marcus warned, eyebrow raised. "You two sure you want in?" Emma crossed her arms. "We're sure. Let's go." He shook his head with a small, almost invisible grin. "All right. Hop in." Their first stop was a tiny weather-beaten house nestled between two overgrown lots. An elderly woman with a hunched back opened the door before Marcus even knocked. Her name was Mrs. Margaret, and the worry on her face was deep set. "I'm so sorry to call you so early, Marcus," she said, wringing her hands. "My car won't start again, and my granddaughter can't miss another day of school." Marcus knelt to meet her gaze. "It's okay, ma'am. I've got you." While Marcus got to work under the hood, Emma stood nearby, holding the flashlight exactly as he directed. She watched him work, not just with precision, but with care. Every movement deliberate, every bolt handled like it mattered. When the car finally rumbled to life, Mrs. Margaret's eyes flooded with tears. "I can't pay you what it's worth," she whispered, reaching into her apron pocket and pulling out a crumpled $20 bill. "But please, at least take this." Marcus gently pushed her hand back. "No, ma'am. Keep that. Use it for your granddaughter." Emma was silent, watching him as he packed his tools. There was no performance in what he did. No grand gestures. Just quiet goodness. And it hit her then, he does this all the time. Not just for her. Not just for Liam. For everyone who's ever needed help. Their next stop was a neighborhood even worse off. Peeling paint. Broken windows. People who didn't meet your eye. A man named Frank had called Marcus the night before, his truck stranded and undrivable. Frank greeted them with a weak smile, embarrassed to even ask for help. "She's all I got to get to work, Marcus. I don't know what else to do." Marcus crouched by the truck, examining the problem without judgment. "You got a cracked fuel line. I can fix it. Might take an hour." While Marcus worked, Frank tried to hand him a tin of cookies his wife had baked. Marcus shook his head again. "Pass them on to someone else who needs something sweet," he said. "Come on, Marcus," Frank insisted. "You never take anything." Marcus's voice was steady but firm. "Because I'm not doing this to be owed." Emma watched the exchange, her heart swelling with admiration and something more, a fierce desire to protect him. Because she could see what others might not. His strength wasn't just in his hands or his know-how. It was in how he treated people. Gently, like their dignity mattered. On the way back to town, Liam fell asleep across Emma's lap in the truck, a small smile on his face. Emma looked over at Marcus, who kept his eyes on the road but spoke softly. "You don't have to come along, you know. I never asked you to." Emma turned toward him, voice just as low. "We didn't come for you, Marcus. We came because you've already done so much for us. This is the least we can do." He nodded once, then fell silent again. But something inside him shifted, just slightly. The weight he carried, the quiet wall he kept up, didn't feel so impenetrable anymore. Back at the garage, Marcus pulled in and cut the engine. Emma gently carried Liam inside to rest on a spare cot in the office while Marcus sorted tools at the workbench. Emma came back out and leaned against the doorway, watching him. "Why do you do it?" she asked. "All of this. You could make real money. Open a proper business. Charge people. But you don't." Marcus didn't look up. "Because I used to wait for someone to come save me, too. And no one ever did." She took a few steps closer. "You're trying to be what you never had." His eyes met hers then, and for a moment, she saw everything he didn't say: loneliness, loss, heartbreak, determination. "Yeah," he said simply. Emma stepped close and laid a gentle hand on his arm. "Then let me help you carry some of it." He looked down at her hand, then at her face. No one had ever said that to him. Not like that. Not with that kind of honesty. The room felt suddenly warmer. Closer. Just then, a sleepy voice interrupted them. "Mr. Marcus?" Liam mumbled, rubbing his eyes as he came out of the office. "Can we come back next weekend too?" Marcus's expression softened. "If your mom says it's okay." Emma smiled and ruffled Liam's hair. "It's more than okay." And right there, In that little garage smelling of motor oil and hope, something unspoken was building, something steady, fragile, and utterly real. The following weekend, the sun returned to Cedar Grove like a long-lost friend. It cast a golden warmth across the town's cracked sidewalks and rust-stained rooftops, making everything feel just a bit softer. At Fixing Forward, Marcus was already under the hood of an old Jeep when he heard Liam's familiar voice calling from the entrance. "Mr. Marcus. We brought muffins." Marcus looked up to see Liam holding a brown paper bag triumphantly over his head while Emma stood beside him, laughing. She wore a simple white t-shirt tucked into worn jeans, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She looked more at home there in the garage than she ever had in the sleek dress he'd first seen her in. "Blueberry," she added, raising an eyebrow. "Fresh baked. You better take them this time." He smirked and reached for the bag. "Bribery, huh? Call it gratitude," she said, brushing a bit of flour from Liam's cheek. As the day wore on, the garage came alive, not just with the sound of tools and engines, but with laughter, movement, and something else, togetherness. Liam drew on old cardboard boxes while Emma helped organize the tool rack. Marcus watched it all in quiet awe. He'd spent most of his life believing peace was something people talked about, not something they ever truly had. But this felt dangerously close. Later that afternoon, Emma brought over a small sketchbook Liam had been working on. She opened it and held it out. "He's been drawing you again," she said, flipping to a page. Marcus expected capes and comic-style explosions. Instead, he saw himself drawn in pencil, detailed and grounded. No costume. Just Marcus, smiling faintly, grease on his hands, Liam standing beside him holding a toy wrench. He stared at it longer than he should have. "I'm not a hero," he muttered, looking away. Emma tilted her head. "He doesn't see a hero because you're flashy. He sees one because you showed up. You stayed." Marcus clenched his jaw. The idea of staying had always carried weight. Heavy weight. The kind that reminded him of promises broken long ago. He glanced down at his hands, scarred and rough from years of labor. "I don't know how to be what he thinks I am." Emma stepped closer. "You don't have to be perfect, Marcus. Just, be present. That's all." That word again, present. It echoed inside his head, bouncing between memories and fears. His father had been physically present for a while, sure, but never emotionally. Never there. He wasn't sure he could be any different. But then Liam ran up to him again, holding a small bolt and looking up like he was the greatest man on earth. "Can I help with the next car, Mr. Marcus?" Marcus took the bolt slowly, forcing a smile. "Yeah, buddy. Let's do it together." That evening, after they closed up, Emma and Liam lingered longer than usual. They sat outside on a stack of tires watching the sky turn orange. "I haven't told you much about Liam's dad," Emma said suddenly, her voice quiet. Marcus glanced over, saying nothing. Just listening. "He left before Liam was born. Disappeared after I told him I was pregnant. I haven't heard from him since." Marcus's heart stirred, not with pity, but with quiet fury. Not at her, but at the thought of another man walking away from something so irreplaceable. "I did everything alone for years," she continued. "And I don't regret any of it. But I won't lie. There were days I cried myself to sleep, wondering how I'd make it through another week." Marcus's throat tightened. Emma looked over at him, her voice stronger now. "That's why what you're doing, what you've done for Liam, it matters more than you know. You changed his world, Marcus. Even if you don't realize it yet." He looked at her then, really looked. She wasn't fragile. She wasn't lost. She was strong in a way he admired. In a way that scared him a little, because it meant he couldn't lie to her. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted finally. "I don't know how to be a father. Mine left when I was 4. I don't even remember what it felt like to be loved by one. Emma leaned in, placing her hand gently on his. Then maybe that's exactly why you're meant to be one. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, it was full. Full of things neither of them knew how to say yet, but both felt deeply. As the sky dimmed into dusk, Marcus felt something shift inside him. He'd spent years afraid of connection. Of being needed. Of letting someone close enough to hurt him. But here was this woman, brave, honest, flawed, and this little boy, full of light and questions and trust. And they weren't asking him to be perfect. They were asking him to stay. And that, somehow, was the hardest and most beautiful thing anyone had ever asked of him. The next few weeks moved with quiet purpose. Fixing Forward became more than just a garage, it was now a gathering place. A rhythm developed, mornings filled with repairs and tune-ups, afternoons with shared stories, and evenings with Liam's drawings spread across the office desk. For Marcus, the shift was subtle but profound. He no longer came to work just to fix cars. He came because Emma and Liam would be there. He came because, for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid to look forward to something. Then came the day everything changed. It started normally. Marcus had just finished replacing a timing belt on an old SUV when a group of news vans rolled into the gravel lot. Reporters spilled out, cameras already rolling, microphones pointed toward the entrance like weapons. Emma and Liam had just arrived, their smiles fading as they watched the sudden chaos unfold. Marcus froze. What the hell is this? A woman in a red blazer stepped forward, speaking fast into a mic. We're here with Marcus Bennett, the mystery mechanic of Cedar Grove. The man fixing cars for free and changing lives one family at a time. Mr. Bennett, how does it feel to be a local hero? He blinked, stunned. I didn't ask for this. Emma stepped forward quickly, shielding Liam with one arm. Marcus, I'm so sorry, she said, her voice full of panic. I didn't mean for this to happen. I posted something on the community board, a thank you message. I thought maybe a few neighbors would see it. I never expected this. Marcus's chest tightened. The walls were closing in, cameras flashing, strangers shouting questions, microphones shoved into his face. He turned sharply and disappeared into the garage. The crowd didn't follow, but they didn't leave either. Inside, Emma found Marcus hunched over his workbench, fists clenched. She approached slowly. I didn't do it for praise, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I did it because I know what it's like to need help and not have anyone. Emma reached for him, but he pulled away slightly. They're going to twist this, he continued. People are going to start watching. Judging. Waiting for me to fall. Emma swallowed her guilt, stepping closer. I know. And I'm sorry. I just wanted them to see what I see in you. He finally looked up, pain written across his face. But what if I'm not who you think I am? She shook her head, tears threatening. You are, Marcus. You are exactly who Liam thinks you are. And you're more than enough. The next few days brought a wave of attention. Some good, strangers stopped by to thank him, donate tools, or drop off supplies. But not all of it was kind. Anonymous comments on the local paper's website accused him of faking his generosity for fame. One message read, nobody does this for free unless they're hiding something. Then came the threats. Marcus found the first note taped to the garage door early one morning. Stop playing the hero. Before someone makes you stop. He didn't say a word to Emma or Liam that day. But he didn't sleep either. 2 nights later, the phone rang just past midnight. Marcus answered, expecting a wrong number. What he got was a chilling whisper. You're not fooling everyone, Bennett. Back off, or someone else will pay. He hung up and stared at the wall, the dial tone ringing in his ears like a siren. His mind immediately went to Emma and Liam. He had let them get close. And now, because of him, they were in danger. The next morning, he was outside before dawn, waiting with a thermos of black coffee and eyes dark from another sleepless night. When Emma pulled up with Liam, he waved them down. "You shouldn't come here for a while," he said bluntly. Emma frowned. "Why?" He handed her the folded note. Her eyes scanned it, her face shifting from confusion to horror to fury. "Marcus, no. You can't push us away over this." "I have to," he said. "This isn't just about me anymore." Emma stared at him, then stepped forward, voice low but fierce. "We're not afraid of shadows. And we don't run from people who need us." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Emma, please. If anything ever happened to Liam, then don't shut us out," she said, cutting him off. "Let us help you. Let us protect you too." Marcus wanted to argue. To explain how every ounce of fear in him came from being alone too long, from learning the hard way that caring meant pain. But Liam walked up just then, sleepy-eyed and smiling. "Mr. Marcus, can I help you with the toolbox again today?" Marcus looked at him, this small boy who had opened a door Marcus had spent decades bolting shut, and felt something deeper than fear. He felt responsible. He bent down and tousled Liam's hair. "Not today, little man. Today's a quiet day." "But I drew something for you," Liam said, pulling out a folded piece of paper from his backpack. "It's us. You, me, and Mom. Fixing stuff." Marcus opened it. 3 stick figures stood under a bright yellow sun, each one smiling, holding hands. Above them, Liam had written, "Team Bennett." Marcus couldn't speak. He just nodded, blinking quickly and hugging the boy close. Emma watched quietly, her heart swelling with both pride and worry. Because even as Marcus smiled and thanked Liam, she saw the storm still brewing behind his eyes. She knew something was breaking inside him. And if the next threat came, it wouldn't just test Marcus's strength, it would test how far they were all willing to go to protect the family they were building. That night, the storm that had been threatening finally arrived, not just in the sky, but in Marcus's life. The rain returned in sheets, wind howling through the trees like the echoes of a past he'd never outrun. Inside the garage, Marcus sat at his desk staring at a manila envelope that had been shoved through the mail slot hours earlier. He hadn't opened it. He didn't need to. He already knew what it was. Another threat. He turned it over in his hands slowly, methodically, as if doing so might somehow delay what he already felt coming. On the front, in thick black marker, were 5 words. "Leave them. Final warning." This wasn't just about him anymore. It never had been. Just then, the office door creaked open. Emma stood there, soaked from the rain, a determined fire in her eyes. Behind her, Liam was safe in the car, his tiny silhouette barely visible through the foggy window. Marcus stood up quickly. "You shouldn't have come. It's not safe." "I don't care," Emma interrupted. "Marcus, this ends tonight. You can't keep shutting us out like this. Not anymore." His face darkened with frustration. "Emma, if anything happened to you or Liam because of me, I couldn't live with it." She stepped closer, her voice trembling but unwavering. "And what if something happens because you pushed us away? What then?" He exhaled sharply, looking away. "I've lived with fear for a long time. I can handle it." Emma's tone softened, but her words carried weight. "Marcus, strength isn't about handling fear alone. It's about knowing when to share it." He was quiet for a long moment. Then finally, he reached for the envelope and opened it. Inside was a single photo, Emma, Liam, and Marcus standing outside the garage a week ago. Smiling. Laughing. The word "remove" was scribbled across it in red ink. Emma stared at the photo, her hand flying to her mouth. "Someone's watching us," she whispered. Marcus's jaw tensed. And they're getting closer. A few minutes later, after ensuring Liam was safely asleep inside the house, Marcus and Emma sat on the porch, the storm still raging around them. "We need help," Emma said. "This isn't just a prank. This is serious." Marcus nodded slowly. "I've got a friend. Former cop. Keeps to himself, but he owes me a favor. I'll call him tomorrow." Emma looked over at him, her eyes tired but trusting. "We're in this together, Marcus. All of us." He turned to her then, eyes glinting in the low porch light. "I don't know what I did to deserve you. Or him." She smiled softly. "You didn't have to do anything. You just had to show up." The next morning, Marcus made the call. That afternoon, a silver SUV pulled into the lot. A tall man in jeans and a leather jacket stepped out, broad-shouldered, alert, ex-police written all over him. He shook Marcus's hand firmly. "Name's Derek," he said. "Show me everything." Marcus handed over the notes, the photos, and even the voice message he'd managed to record from the last phone call. Derek read and listened in silence. "Someone's obsessed," he finally said. "Probably local. Watching, maybe even blending in. I'll set up surveillance tonight." "Thank you," Marcus said quietly. Derek nodded. "You did the right thing asking for help. That's not weakness. That's survival." Later that day, Emma found Marcus staring at the security monitors Derek had set up in the corner of the garage. "I thought I was done with ghosts," he muttered. Emma walked to him and took his hand. "Maybe it's not about escaping them. Maybe it's about standing firm when they come knocking." He looked at her, and for the first time, truly let himself be seen. Not the protector. Not the fixer. Just Marcus, raw, real, afraid, and still trying. Emma reached up and cupped his face. "You're not alone anymore, Marcus. Not in this. Not in anything." He leaned into her touch, letting his defenses drop. "I don't know how to do this," he whispered. She smiled. "You're already doing it." That night, under the dim light of the garage office, Marcus stared at Liam's drawing on the wall, Team Bennett, and realized something profound. He wasn't just protecting a family. He was becoming part of one. And even though danger still loomed, even though he didn't know what tomorrow would bring, he knew this. He would fight for them. Not just with his hands. But with his heart. The sun rose over Cedar Grove with an uneasy stillness, like the world was holding its breath. Marcus stood in the middle of fixing forward, scanning the garage as Derek adjusted the last of the hidden cameras. Wires tucked behind shelves. Motion sensors rigged near the gate. Every corner monitored. Every angle covered. "This guy's escalating," Derek said grimly, tapping the monitor. "It won't be long before he slips up." Marcus nodded, but his mind wasn't on the cameras, it was on Emma and Liam. They were at home, under Derek's watchful eye. Safe, for now. But Marcus felt the weight of everything pressing on his chest. Not the threats. Not the surveillance. But the fear that history would repeat itself. His father had walked away when it mattered most. What if he couldn't stop this? What if he failed now, when it mattered most? That evening, Marcus drove to Emma's house. He didn't knock. He stood by the door until Emma opened it like she'd been waiting the whole time. "I can't keep this fear bottled anymore," Marcus confessed. "Every time I look at Liam, I think, what if I disappear like my father did?" Emma reached for his hand. "Then don't. That's the difference. You're here. You're fighting. And that's more than he ever did." They sat together, silent, while Liam played with his toy wrench nearby, humming to himself. Watching him, Marcus made a decision. "I'm not going to let this threat define me," he said. "Or scare me away from the people I care about. I'm staying. For good." Emma's eyes softened, and without a word, she leaned in and kissed him, slow, quiet, but filled with promise. That night, back at the garage, Marcus and Derek kept watch. The cameras blinked in the dark. The monitors cycled through shadows and stillness. Then, movement. The outer gate creaked. A figure stepped into frame, cloaked in black, holding something metallic. Marcus's pulse jumped. "There," he said. Derek moved fast, slipping out the back door with practiced silence. Marcus followed. The rain had started again, thin and cold. They rounded the corner of the garage just as the figure crept toward the main bay door. "Hey!" Marcus barked. The figure turned, and bolted. Marcus gave chase, feet pounding against gravel. He didn't hesitate. He wasn't that man who ran from shadows anymore. He faced them. The man slipped behind a rusted car in the lot, but Derek was faster. He lunged and brought him down hard onto the wet pavement. Marcus caught up just in time to rip the hood from the intruder's face. He froze. It was Calvin Reed. A former client. A bitter, angry man Marcus had refused to help months ago, after catching him trying to scam another mechanic in town. He'd held a grudge ever since. "You think you're some kind of savior?" Calvin spat. "People like you don't get to play hero. You're nothing but a fraud." Marcus stepped back, disgust and clarity washing over him. "You threatened a woman and a child to prove what, exactly?" "Because everyone started acting like you were a saint," Calvin hissed. "Fixing everyone's problems like some damn messiah. But I know you. You're just another charity case trying to play noble." Marcus's voice was cold and steady. "You know nothing about me." Police arrived within minutes, thanks to Derek's earlier call. Calvin was cuffed and shoved into the back of a cruiser, his ranting drowned out by the rain. As silence returned, Derek clapped Marcus on the shoulder. "You good?" Marcus nodded slowly. "I am now." The next morning brought more than just peace, it brought closure. Marcus stood on the porch of Emma's home, Liam wrapped in his arms. Emma stepped outside, arms folded, waiting. "It's over," Marcus said. "He won't be coming back." Emma reached for his hand, her voice low. "And what about you?" He didn't hesitate. "I'm right where I belong." Later that evening, as the three of them sat at the dinner table, Emma lit a candle, not for decoration, but as a symbol. "A new beginning." "Marcus," she said, placing her hand over his, "I know it hasn't been easy. But I want to ask you something." He looked up, curious. She smiled softly. "Do you still think you don't know how to be a father?" Marcus's throat tightened. He looked at Liam, who was already climbing into his lap, hands covered in paint from a project they'd started earlier. "No," Marcus whispered. "I think I've been one this whole time." The next week, Fixing Forward reopened, not just as a garage, but as a community hub. People brought meals, volunteered, shared stories. Emma started a support board in the corner for single parents. Liam drew a new picture every week for the wall. Marcus hung a sign at the entrance. Hand-carved. It read, "Leave no one behind. Fix what matters." And when people asked who came up with it, Marcus would just smile and nod toward the little boy drawing superheroes in the back. Because in the end, they had fixed him too. In a world that often rewards noise and overlooks quiet strength, Marcus Bennett proved that the truest heroes don't wear capes, they show up, stay through the storms, and fix more than just what's broken under a hood. Because sometimes, the greatest act of love, is choosing to stay. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to True Echo for more powerful real-life tales. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that kindness, courage, and family, no matter how it's formed, can change everything.